So BenQ has kindly sent over this monitor for me to review, and I gotta say, my first impressions were a bit unexpected. I've been using this monitor for about a week now, and I'll provide you guys my honest review and experience on whether or not this monitor is worth your money. After all, this monitor is not cheap, so we definitely need to understand the pros and cons first. So without further ado, let's start with the build quality and the design. Right off the bat, we can see that this monitor is a bit square-ish. This is because it has a 3:2 aspect ratio, coming in at 28.2 inch screen size. The build quality is okay. I wouldn't say it's high quality, but it's definitely not low quality. And this monitor is quite heavy as well. Just the screen itself weighs like 7.5 kilograms, so something to consider if you're putting it on the monitor arm. We can see this extra part below the screen called a function bar, which we'll get to that a bit later. On the back, we have this nice halo light, which I actually really like. We can set it to automatically change the color from warm to cool, depending on the time of day, which really sets the mood. Down here, we have this clip for cable management, which is neat. And this monitor stand allows you to swivel horizontally and vertically, and also tilt forward and back. And we can also adjust the height, which is pretty nice too. And we need to talk about how easy it was to set it up. I'm not really a fan of reading manuals, so oftentimes it bites me back when I'm stuck on something. But this monitor is actually really easy to set up. All you have to do is attach the base to the neck, twist the screw, and just clip on the screen, and that's it. Alright, now let's run through the ports on this monitor. We have one HDMI port, one display port, one USB port for the KVM, which I'll get to it a bit later. And also we have two USB-Cs. Down below we have three USB-A ports and a 3.5mm audio port. The next thing we need to talk about is how we can connect our device directly to the monitor. Usually you would need a docking station, which is where you would connect all your peripherals and then connect your HDMI or display port cable to your screen. For this BENQ monitor, you can directly connect it through USB-C, which I think is very neat. It also saves you from using an extra docking station, so that's a win. Now let's talk about the display. As mentioned earlier, this is a 3:2 aspect ratio with a screen resolution of 3840 by 2560. This is a 4K screen with IPS panel, and it only has a refresh rate of 60Hz. Now you're probably thinking the same thing as me. Why is the refresh rate capped at 60Hz? Especially at this price point, which I consider to be on a higher range. I think it should have been at least 120 or 144Hz. So BENQ markets this monitor as a programming monitor. So if we were to think about it from that angle, then I guess you don't really need that high of a refresh rate, as that's generally for gaming or watching shows. Also, since this monitor is designed specifically for programmers, there's more height to the screen, which allows more screen real estate vertically. If you're a programmer, then you probably code with half screen and the other half for something else like a web browser. For this use case, I think it's alright. After all, this only adds in a couple of extra lines of visibility. I think realistically, we're more focused on the middle of the screen anyway, not so much on the top or the bottom, so it's not a big deal to me. Okay, let's talk about the function bar. This function bar is probably one of the selling points that BENQ is trying to push for this monitor. We can just tap on this bar and it will pop up this menu. We can essentially swipe between coding themes like dark mode or light mode. We can also change the settings here by using the toggle right below the bar. So if it's really dark in a room, then I'll just configure it to have low brightness and low blue light, so it's easier on my eyes. Now, one of the things I actually really like about this function bar is the ability to turn on e-paper mode. This pretty much makes your entire screen black and white, kind of like a Kindle. This is really good, especially if you're doing work at night. I've personally experienced heavy eye strains when I work at night. When I use this e-paper mode, it really makes it easier on the eyes, so it's a massive plus for me. Another key feature we need to talk about is the non-reflective screen. This is also another feature I really like, as sometimes the sunlight in my room shines onto my screen and it affects the visibility. But for this BENQ monitor, we can see the glare difference on the screens, and it's really able to reduce the amount of reflection, so that looks really good to me. With this feature, the screen is able to provide more vibrant and rich color, so that's another plus for me. This BENQ monitor also has a feature called Brightness Intelligence Gen 2. This feature allows the monitor to detect the brightness of your surroundings and automatically adjust the screen to suit your eyes. The next thing we gotta talk about is the KVM capability. So for those of you who don't know, if you have two computers and only a single set of peripherals like keyboard and mouse and speakers, you need a thing called a KVM switch in order to use your stuff between two machines. What the KVM essentially does is you connect everything onto the switch, including your monitors. So traditionally, you would use more cables connecting to the KVM, but this monitor has a KVM switch built in. So that means you can pretty much connect all your peripherals right into the USB ports. This monitor also supports daisy chaining. So if you have more compatible monitors, you can daisy chain them by connecting the cables together, which is pretty neat. Unfortunately, I couldn't get this to work with my existing monitors. I was low-key excited because I thought it would work, but I guess it has to be daisy chain compatible, or maybe it's just a BENQ feature. We also have a built-in speaker for this monitor. I'm gonna do a sound comparison here between the monitor and my JBL speakers. This is pretty obvious, but you should always get a separate set of speakers if you want a better sound quality. Okay, now that we have gone through all the key features, let's talk about my experience with this BENQ monitor after using it for about a week. So my first impression when I first saw this monitor was the design. It definitely stood out to me mainly because I've never really used a 3:2 aspect ratio screen. Besides that, the monitor feels solid and the assembly was super easy. This monitor is targeted towards programmers. I'm a programmer myself, and to be honest, the main selling features to me were the e-paper mode and the reduced screen reflection. I spend like at least 10 hours a day doing various work on my computer, and staring at my normal monitors definitely puts a strain on my eyes. After using the e-paper mode, especially during nighttime, I definitely feel like it helped me a bit. I know that this isn't exactly e-paper, it's just turning the screen monochromatic, so maybe the name is a bit misleading, but either way, I enjoyed using it. The function bar was also nice to have, as I was able to easily switch between the different modes if needed. With my existing monitors, I would use an app to manually adjust the blue light, so I guess having a physical button to switch is a better experience. I think when the automatic brightness kicks in with the halo light, it definitely works nicely together to create a better working environment. Now let's talk about my dislikes. First up is the 60Hz display. Honestly, in this day and age, I think capping the screen refresh rate at 60Hz, especially at a price tag of like $1,000 Australian, is a huge turnoff for me. Even though this monitor is heavily marketed towards programmers, most programmers would also do other stuff like gaming or watching shows. So bumping up to 120Hz or even 144Hz actually makes a huge difference. I'm also not a big fan of this 3:2 aspect ratio, considering the extra vertical screen size. When you're coding, you're only getting a couple of extra lines of visibility. In my opinion, this isn't practical anyway, as you don't usually code towards the bottom of the screen. This will make your head lean down and ruin the entire posture. I don't know about you guys, but I usually keep my focus towards the middle or even the top of the screen. So this 3:2 aspect ratio is not for me. And that's about all my dislikes. Overall, this monitor is well built, well rounded, and has most of the features that you would look for. But if I had a friend asking if I would recommend this monitor, then I would say it depends. If your use case is for productivity and you don't really game or watch YouTube videos or any shows, then sure, it's a good monitor for long hours of work. I've personally used this monitor for at least 10 hours a day, and it's better than the ones I'm currently using. But if you're someone like me who does everything on their computer like work, game, YouTube, Netflix, etc., then you will enjoy a wider screen ratio and a higher refresh rate. So if you fit within that use case, then I wouldn't really recommend this monitor for you. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this honest review. Once again, I would like to say thanks to BENQ for sending me this monitor to review. And if you're interested in getting this monitor, link is in the description down below, so feel free to check it out. Thanks for watching.